नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथन्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चन गौरङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमां विष्णुपदाय कृष्णाप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Ribo. Okay, so welcome to this reading session. We are today reading 4th chapter. Oh, it's a short one. Maybe 2 chapters if it's fast one. Let's see. Okay, let's read chapters 4 and 5. Ribo. So, chapter 4. Kamsa begins his persecutions. After Vasudeva adjusted all the doors and gates, the gatekeepers awoke and heard the newborn child crying. Kamsa was waiting to hear the news of the child's birth, and the gatekeepers immediately approached him and informed him that the child was born. At that time, Kamsa got up from his bed very quickly and exclaimed, "Now the cruel death of my life is born." Kamsa became perplexed now that his death was approaching, and his hair stood on end. Immediately he proceeded toward the place where the child was born. Devaki, on seeing her brother approaching, prayed in a very meek attitude to Kamsa, "My dear brother, please do not kill this female child. I promise that this child will be the wife of your son. Therefore, don't kill her. You are not to be killed by any female child. That was the omen. You are to be killed by a male child, so please do not kill her. My dear brother, you have killed so many of my children who were just born, shining as the sun. That is not your fault. You have been advised by demoniac friends to kill my children, but now I beg you to excuse this girl. Let her live as my daughter." Kamsa was so cruel that he did not listen to the beautiful prayers of his sister Devaki. He forcibly grabbed the newborn child to rebuke his sister and attempt to dash her on the stone mercilessly. This is a graphic example of a cruel brother who could sacrifice all relationships for the sake of personal gratification. But immediately the child slipped out of his hand, went up in the sky and appeared with 8 arms as the younger sister of Vishnu. She was decorated with a nice dress and flower garlands and ornaments in her 8 hands, and she held a bow, lancet, arrows, bell, conch shell, disc, club, and shield. Seeing the appearance of the child, who was actually the goddess Durga, all the demigods from different planets like Siddhaloka, Charanaloka, Gandharvaloka, Apsaraloka, Kinnaraloka, and Uragaloka presented her articles and began to offer their respective prayers. From above, the goddess addressed Kamsa. "You rascal, how can you kill me? The child who will kill you is already born before me somewhere within this world. Don't be so cruel to your poor sister." After this appearance, the goddess Durga became known by various names in various parts of the world. After hearing the words, Kamsa became very much overwhelmed with fear. Out of pity, he immediately released Vasudeva and Devaki from the bondage of their shackles and very politely began to address them. He said, "My dear sister and brother-in-law, I have acted just like a demon in killing my own nephews. I have given up all consideration of our intimate relationship. I do not know what will be the result of these acts of mine. Probably I shall be sent to the hell where killers of the Brahmanas go. I am surprised, however, that the celestial prophecy has not come true. False propaganda is not found only in the human society. Now it appears that even the celestial denizens speak lies. Because I believed in the words of the celestial denizens, I have committed so many sins by killing the children of my sister. My dear Vasudeva and Devaki, you are both very great souls. I have nothing to instruct you, but still I request that you not be sorry for the death of your children. Every one of us is under the control of superior power, and that superior power does not allow us to remain together. We are bound to be separated from our friends, relatives in due course of time, but we must know for certain that even after the disappearance of the different material bodies, the soul remains intact internally. For example, there are many pots made of earthly clay, and they are prepared and also broken. But in spite of this, the earth remains as it is perpetually. Similarly, the bodies of the soul under different conditions are made and destroyed, but the spirit soul remains eternally. So there is nothing to lament over. Everyone, yeah, this is funny that he says that all these things, but still he was so scared that he had to kill the children and everything. He was so scared of death, but now he's talking like this. Everyone should understand that this material body is different from the spirit soul, and so long as one does not come to that understanding, he is sure to accept the process of transmigration from one body to another. My dear sister Devaki, you are so gentle and kind. Please excuse me. Don't be aggrieved by the death of your children, which I have caused. Actually, this was not done by me, because all these are predestined activities. Yes, this is what crazy people say. Oh, this was not done by me. It was predestined. It's not my fault that I killed many children or did crazy things. It was just predestined. This is really like close to what the ISKCON guys are doing at the moment. They do crazy things, and when they get caught, they say no, there shouldn't. There is no like.
They say it's your karma that your guru fell down.
Yes, Sabo. Yes, and they say that once one is like Vaishnava, whatever he does, that's excused. Whatever he does, he can just do whatever, and because he's the Vaishnava, that's excused. They say like this. So people misunderstand that with the end of the body, the self dies, or they think that one can kill another living entity. All these misconceptions oblige one to accept conditions of material existence. In other words, as long as one is not firmly convinced of the eternality of the soul, one is subjected to the tribulation of being killer and killed. My dear sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, kindly excuse the atrocities I have committed against you. I am very poor-hearted, and you are so great-hearted, so take compassion upon me and excuse me. Yes, now he's also thinking that, Krishna is not coming after all, that this was lie. This thing he heard from the sky was all like, now he's like a little bit calmed down. He saw that it's a girl that was born, that the whole thing was lie. No one is coming to kill me. Now he's a little bit like relieved. Okay, Hare Krishna, anyone can continue from here.
Oh. While Kamasa was speaking to the brother-in-law and sister, tears flowed from his eyes, and he fell down at their feet. Believing the words of Torga Devi, whom he had tried to kill, Kamasa immediately released his brother-in-law and sister. He personally unlocked the iron shackles and very sympathetically showed his friendship, just like a family member. When Devaki saw her brother so repentant, she became pacified and forgot all the atrocious activities against her children. Vasudeva, also forgetting all the past incidents, spoke smilingly with his brother-in-law. Vasudeva told Kamasa, "My dear brother, my dear fortunate brother-in-law, what are you saying? What you are saying about the material body and the soul is correct. Every living entity is born ignorant, understanding this material body to be his self. This conception of life is due to ignorance, and on the basis of ignorance, we create enmity and friendship, lamentation, jubilation, fearfulness, envy, greed, illusion, madness, different features of the material conception of life. A person influenced by the like this engages in enmity due only to the material body. Being engaged in such activities where we forget our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudev took the opportunity of Kamasa's benevolence and informed him that his atheistic activities were also due to his misconception of life, namely, taking the material body to be the self. When Vasudev talked to Kamasa in such an illuminating way, Kamasa became very pleased, and his guilt for killing his nephews subdued. With the permission of his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudev, he returned to his home with a relieved mind. uh, I like how his guilt was relieved as soon as they said they agreed with him.
Yes.
But the next day, Kamasa called all of his counselors together and narrated to them all the incidents that had happened the night before. All the counselors of Kamasos were demon and eternal enemies of demigods. So they became depressed upon hearing their master speak of the night's events. And although they were not very much experienced or learned, they began to give instructions to Kamasa as follows. My dear, my dear sir, let us now make arrangement to kill all children who are born within the last 10 days in the town, countries, village, and pasturing grounds. Let us execute this plan indiscriminately. We think that the demigods cannot do anything against us. If we perform these atrocities, they're always afraid fighting with us. Even if they wish to check our activities, they will not dare to do so because the immeasurable strength of your bow. They fear you. Indeed, you have practical experience. We have practical experience that whatever you stood to fight with, uh, with them and began to shower your arrows on them. They immediately began to flee in all directions just to save their lives. Many of the demigods were unable to fight you, and they immediately surrendered themselves unto you by opening their turbans and the flags of their heads. With the folded hands, they begged you to spare them and said, My lord, we are all afraid of your strength. Please release us from this dangerous fight. We have also seen many times that you would never kill such surrendered fighters when they were all fearful. Their bows, arrows, and chariots broken, forgetful of their military activities, and unable to fight with you. So actually, we have nothing to fear from these demigods. They are very proud of being great fighters in peace times outside of the warfield, but actually they cannot show any talent or military power uh, on the warfield. Actually, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma are always ready to help the demigods headed by Indra. We have no reason to be afraid of them. Uh, as as far as Lord Vishnu is concerned, he has already hidden himself within the hearts of all living entities, and he cannot come out. As far as Lord Shiva is concerned, he has renounced all activities. He he has already entered into a forest, and Lord Brahma is always engaged in different types of austerities and meditation. And what to speak of Indra? He is a straw in comparison to your strength. Uh, Therefore, we have nothing to fear from all the demigods, but we must not neglect them because the demigods are determined enemies. We must be careful to protect ourselves, to root them out from their very existence. We should engage ourselves in service, in your service, and be always ready for your command. They're saying Lord Vishnu, he hid himself in the hearts.
Yes, Prabhu.
Brahma, he's just busy. Shiva, he's renounced.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, we have nothing to worry about, Kamasa.
Yes, Prabhu. It's so funny. and the Kamsa will believe them.
Hey, Krishna Vishnu Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Bless
Prabhu,
Prabhupada.
Bhat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Krishna Prabhu, Danda Pranam. Jai Shri Prabhu.
Hare
Once
Krishna, Kalesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna
What?
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hey, whoa.
Hello.
You mind reading a little bit, Prabhu?
Hello. Hello
Hare
Prabhu.
Yeah,
Hare Krishna
you
Prabhu.
can read. Yeah.
Prabhu, I
Here,
can't. Prabhu, I can't read. Prabhu, please. I'm poor in
no.
English. Prabhu, I can listen. Prabhu. Prabhu.
Okay.
Okay,
TK,
thank you,
okay.
Prabhu. Thank you. Okay, Prabhu. Hari Prabhu.
Okay, so I'll continue from here. Demons continued to say, if
Sorry,
there
Prabhu.
is some disease in the body which is neglected, it becomes incurable. Similarly, when one is not careful about re- retra- retraining the senses and letting them loose, it's very difficult to control them at all. Therefore, we must always be careful of the demigods. Therefore, before they get too strong and to be subdued. The foundations of the strength of the demigods is Lord Vishnu, because the ultimate goal of all religious principles is to satisfy him. Vedic injunctions, the brahmanas, the cows, the austerities, sacrifices, performance of charity, distribution of wealth are all for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. So let us immediately begin by killing all the brahmanas who are in charge of the Vedic knowledge, and the great sages who are in charge of the sacrificial uh, ritualistic performances. Let us kill all the cows which are the source of butter, which is uh, which is so necessary for performing sacrifices. Please give us your permission to kill all these creatures. Actually, the limb of the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu are the brahmanas, the cows, the Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, sense and mind control, faithfulness, charity, tolerance, performance of sacrifices. Lord Vishnu is situated in everyone's heart and is the leader of all demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. We think that to kill Lord Vishnu is to persecute the great sages and brahmanas, said the ministers. What's going on?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Thus being advised by the demonic ministers, Kamasa, who is from the very beginning the greatest rascal, decided to persecute the Brahmanas, the Vaishnavas, and Vaishnavas, being entrapped by the shackles of all devouring eternal time. He ordered the demons to harass all kinds of saintly persons, and then he entered his house. The adherents of Kamasa were all influenced by the modes of passion, as well as the illusion by the modes of ignorance, and their only business was to create enmity with saintly persons. Such activities can only reduce the duration of life. The demons accelerated the process and invented their death as soon as possible. The result of persecuting saintly person is not only untimely death. The act is so offensive that the actor is gradually loses his beauty, his fame and religious principles, and his promotion to higher planets is checked. Driven by various kinds of mental concoctions, the demons diminish all kinds of welfare, uh, An offense at the lotus feet of the devotee and brahmanas is a greater offense than committed at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the godless civilization becomes the source of all calamities. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the fourth chapter of Krishna. Kamasa begins his persecution. Abel.
Oh yes, Prabhu. They just reduce their own duration of life.
This is a fact. Like whenever I see like how people not only they're like diminishing their life, they're getting like 1/3 of the karma of the people, the sins actually. And so they have like double, not only like bad karma, but like they're gonna die early.
Okay.
Like you can see like Biden, he looks so old.
Yes,
He
Prabhu.
looks like he's about to die anytime.
Yes, Prabhu. Yesterday I saw it was so funny video. There was a blind man and he was walking, and then Biden was asking from the blind man that where am I? Where am I? He was he was all lost and asking from the blind, but like the blind man can see.
Oh,
Okay, Haribol, next chapter.
chapter 5.
Who wants to read? Vishnu Prabhu, do you want to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Let's start. Chapter
Prabhu, am I audible? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Should I continue, Prabhu?
Okay, you can
Abel,
continue. Vishnu Prabhu can read after that. Haribol.
Abel.
I start reading.
Vishnu, Prabhu. Okay, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
I will read after you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Bhagaram Prabhu, you can read first, and when you finish, then Vishnu Prabhu can read.
Okay, Prabhu. Well, okay. So, what is the
From here.
fifth chapter? Although Krishna was the real son of Vasudeva and Devaki, because of Kansa atrocious activities, Vasudeva could not enjoy the birth ceremony of his son. But Nanda Maharaja, the foster father, celebrated the birth ceremony of Krishna very joyfully. The next day, it was declared that the male child was born of Yashoda. According to Vedic custom, Nanda Maharaja called for learned astrologer and brahmanas to perform the birth ceremony. After the birth of child, the astrologer calculated the moment of the birth and make a horoscope of the child's future life. Another ceremony take place after the birth of child. The family member take bath, cleanse themselves, and decorate themselves with ornaments and garlands. Then they come before the child and the astrologer to hear of the future life of child. Nanda Maharaja and other members of the family dressed and sat down in front of the birthplace. All the Brahmanas who were assembled there on this occasion chanted auspicious mantras according to ritual. While the astrologer performed the birth ceremony, all the demigods are also worshipped on the occasion. As well as forefather of the family, Nanda Maharaja distributed 2 lakhs well decorated, dressed, and ornaments cow to the Brahmanas. He not only gave cows in charity, but hills of grains decorated with golden bordered ornaments and many ornaments. Hare Krishna.
In the material world, we possess riches and wealth in many ways. but sometimes not in very honest and pious ways, because that is the nature of accumulating wealth. According to Vedic injunction, therefore, such wealth should be purified by giving cows and gold in charity to the Brahmanas. A newborn child is also purified by giving grain in charity to the Brahmanas. In this material world, it is to be understood that we are always living in a contaminated state. We therefore have to purify the duration of our life, our personal wealth, and ourselves. The duration of life is purified by taking daily bath and cleansing the body inside and outside, and accepting the 10 kinds of purificatory processes. The austerities, by worship of the Lord, and by distribution of charity, we can purify the possession of wealth. We can purify ourselves by studying the Vedas, by striving for self-realization, and by understanding the supreme absolute truth. It is therefore stated in the Vedic literature that by birth everyone is born a Shudra, and by accepting the purificatory process, one becomes twice born. By studies of the Vedas, one can become Vipra, which is the preliminary qualification for becoming a Brahmana. When one understands the absolute truth in perfection, he is called a Brahmana. And when the Brahmana reaches further perfection, he becomes a Vaishnava or a devotee. In that ceremony, all the Brahmanas assembled began to chant different kinds of Vedic mantras to invoke all good fortune for the child. There are different kinds of chanting known as Sudha, Mahagada, Vandi, and Virudhavali. Along with this chanting of mantras and songs, bugles and kettle drums sounded outside the house. On this occasion, the joyous vibrations could be heard in all the pasturing grounds and all the houses. Within and outside of the house, there were varieties of artistic paintings done with rice pulp and scented water was sprinkled everywhere, even on the roads and streets. Ceilings and roofs were decorated with different kinds of flags, festoons, and green leaves. The gates were made of green leaves and flowers. All the cows, bulls, and calves were smeared with a mixture of oil and turmeric and painted with minerals like red oxide, yellow clay, and manganese. They were they wore garlands of peacock feathers and were covered with nice colored dresses and gold necklaces. When all the ecstatic cowherd men heard that Nanda Maharaj, father of Krishna, was celebrating the birth ceremony of his son, they became spontaneously joyful. They dressed themselves with very costly garments and ornamented their bodies with different kinds of earrings and necklaces, and wore great turbans on their heads. After dressing themselves in this gorgeous way, they took various kinds of presentations and thus approached the house of Nanda Maharaj. As soon as they heard that Mother Yashoda had given birth to a child, all the cowherd women became overwhelmed with joy, and they also dressed themselves with various kinds of costly garments and ornaments, and smeared scented cosmetics on their bodies. As the dust on the lotus flower exhibits the exquisite beauty of the flower, all the gopis, cowherd girls, applied the dust of kunguma on their lotus-like faces. These beautiful gopis took their different presentations and very soon reached the house of Maharaj Nanda. Overburdened with their heavy hips and swollen breasts, the gopis could not proceed very quickly towards the house of Nanda Maharaj. But out of ecstatic love for Krishna, they began to proceed as quickly as possible. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Their ears were decorated with pearl rings. Their necks were decorated with jewel padlocks. Their lips and eyes were decorated with different kinds of lipsticks and ointment, and their hands were decorated with nice golden bangles. As they were very hastily passing over the stone road, the flower garlands which were decorating their bodies fell to the ground, and it appeared that a shower of flowers was falling from the sky. From the movement of the different kinds of ornaments on their bodies, they were looking still more beautiful. In this way, they all reached the house of Nanda Yashoda and blessed the child. Dear child, you live long just to protect us. While they were blessing child Krishna in this way, they offered a mixture of turmeric powder with oil, yogurt, milk, and water. They not only sprinkled this mixture on the body of child Krishna, but on all other persons who were present there. Also on that auspicious occasion, there were different bands of expert musicians playing. When the cowherd man saw the pastimes of the cowherd woman, they became very joyful, and in response they also began to throw yogurt, milk, clarified butter, and water upon the bodies of the gopis. Then both parties began to throw butter on each other's bodies. Nanda Maharaj was also very happy to see the pastimes of the cowherd men and women, and he became very liberal in giving charity to the different singers who were assembled there. Some singers were reciting great verses from the Upanishads and Puranas. Some were glorifying the family ancestors, and some were singing very sweet songs. There were also many learned Brahmanas present, and Nanda Maharaj, being very satisfied on this occasion, began to give them different kinds of garments, ornaments, and cows in charity. It is very important to note in this connection how wealthy the inhabitants of Vrindavan were simply by raising cows. All the cowherd men belonged to the Vaishya community, and their business was to protect the cows and cultivate crops. By their dress and ornaments, and by their behavior, it appears that although they were in a small village, they still were rich in material possessions. They possessed such an abundance of various kinds of milk products, and they were throwing butter lavishly on each other's bodies without restriction. Their wealth was in milk, yogurt, clarified butter, and many other milk products. And by trading their agricultural products, they were rich in various kinds of jewelry, ornaments, and costly dresses. Not only did they possess all these things, but they could give them away in charity, as did Nanda Maharaj. Thus, Nanda Maharaj, the foster father of Lord Krishna, began to satisfy the desires of all the men assembled there. He respectively received them and gave them in charity whatever they desired. The learned Brahmanas, who had no other source of income, were completely dependent on the Vaishyas and Kshatriya communities for their maintenance, and they received gifts of such festive occasions as birthdays, marriages, etc. While Nanda Maharaj was worshipping Lord Vishnu on this occasion, and was trying to satisfy all the people there, his only desire was that newborn child Krishna would be happy. Nanda Maharaj had no knowledge that this child was the origin of Vishnu, but he was praying to Lord Vishnu to protect him. Rohini Devi, mother of Balarama, was the most fortunate wife of Vasudeva. She was away from her husband, yet just to congratulate Maharaj Nanda on the occasion of the birth ceremony of his son Krishna. She dressed herself very nicely. Wearing a garland, a necklace, and other bodily ornaments, she appeared on the scene and moved hither and thither. According to the Vedic system, a woman whose husband is not at home does not dress herself very nicely, but although Rohini's husband was away, she still dressed herself on this occasion. From the opulence of the birth ceremony of Krishna, it is very clear that at that time Vrindavan was rich in every respect. Because Lord Krishna took birth in the house of King Nanda and Mother Yashoda, the goddess of fortune was obliged to manifest her opulences in Vrindavan. It appeared that Vrindavan had already become a site for the pastimes of the goddess of fortune. After the birth ceremony, Nanda Maharaj decided to go to Mathura to pay the annual tax to the government of Kamsa. Before leaving, he called for the able cowherd men of the village and asked them to take care of Vrindavan in his absence. When Nanda Maharaj arrived in Mathura, Vasudeva got the news and was very eager to congratulate his friend. He immediately went to the place where Nanda Maharaj was staying. When Vasudeva saw Nanda, he felt that he had regained his life. Nanda, overwhelmed with joy, immediately stood up and embraced Vasudeva. Vasudeva was received very warmly and offered a nice place to sit. At that time, Vasudeva was anxious about his two sons who had been put under the protection of Nanda without Nanda's knowledge. With great anxiety, Vasudeva inquired about them. Both Balarama and Krishna were the sons of Vasudeva. Balarama was transformed to the womb of Rohini, Vasudeva's own wife, but Rohini was kept under the protection of Nanda Maharaj. Krishna was personally delivered to Yashoda and exchanged with her daughter. Nanda Maharaj knew that Balaram was the son of Vasudeva, although he did not know that Krishna was also Vasudeva's son. But Vasudeva was aware of this fact and inquired very eagerly about Krishna and Balaram. Vasudeva then addressed him, "My dear brother, you were old enough and very anxious to beget a son, and yet you had none. Now, by the grace of the Lord, you are fortunate to have a very nice son. I think that this incident is very auspicious for you. Dear friend, I was imprisoned by Kamsa and now I'm released. Therefore, this is another birth for me. I had no hope of seeing you again, but by God's grace, I can see you." Vasudeva then expressed his anxiety about Krishna. Krishna was sent incognito to the bed of Mother Yashoda, and after very pompously celebrating his birth ceremony, Nanda went to Mathura. So Vasudeva was very pleased and said, "This is a new birth for me." He never expected that Krishna would live because all his other sons were killed by Kamsa. Vasudeva continued, "My dear friend, it is very difficult for us to live together. Although we have our family and relatives, sons and daughters, by nature way, we are generally separated from one another. The reason for this is that every living entity appears on this earth under different pressures of fruitive activities. Although they assemble together, there is no certainty of their remaining together for a long time. According to one's fruitive activities, one has to act differently and thereby be separated. For example, many plants and creepers are floating on the waves of the ocean. Sometimes they come together and sometimes they separate forever. One plant goes on one way, another plant goes another. Similarly, our family mass symbol may be very nice while we are living together, but after some time, in the course of the waves of time, we are separated. The purport of this expression by Vasudeva is this. Although he had 8 sons born in the womb of Devaki, unfortunately they were all gone. He could not even keep his own son Krishna with him. Vasudeva was feeling his separation, but he could not express the real facts. "Please tell me about the welfare of Vrindavan," he said. "You have many animals. Are they happy? Are they getting sufficient grass and water? Please also let me know whether the place where you are now living is undisturbed and peaceful." This inquiry was made by Vasudeva because he was very anxious about Krishna's safety. He knew that Kamsa and his followers were trying to kill Krishna by sending various kinds of demons. They had already resolved that all children born within 10 days of the birth of Krishna should be killed. Because Vasudeva was so anxious about Krishna, he inquired about the safety of his residents. He also inquired about Balarama and his mother Rohini, who were entrusted to the care of Nanda Maharaj. Vasudeva also reminded Nanda Maharaj that Balaram did not know his real father. He knows you as his father, and now you have another child, Krishna, and I think you are taking very nice care of both of them. It is also significant that Vasudeva inquired about the welfare of Nanda Maharaj animals. The animals, and especially the cows, were protected exactly in the manner of one's own children. Vasudeva was a Kshatriya and Nanda Maharaj was a Vaishya. It is the duty of a Kshatriya to give protection to the citizens of mankind, and it is the duty of the Vaishyas to give protection to the cows. The cows are as important as the citizens. Just as the human citizens should be given all kinds of protection, so the cows also should be given full protection. Vasudeva continued to say that the maintenance of religious principles, economic development, and the satisfactory execution of meeting the demands of the senses depend on cooperation among relatives, nations, and all humanity. Therefore, it is everyone's duty to see that his fellow citizens and the cows are not put into difficulty. One should see to the peace and comfort of his fellow man and animals. The development of religious principles, economic development, and sense gratification can then be achieved without difficulty. Vasudeva expressed his sorrow. Due to not being able to give protection to his own sons born of Devaki, he was thinking that religious principles, economic development, and the satisfaction of his senses were therefore all lost. Hare Krishna. Oh, I'll continue this. It's almost ending. On hearing this, Nanda Maharaj replied, "My dear Vasudeva, I know that you are very much aggrieved because the cruel king Kamsa has killed all your sons born of Devaki. Although the last child was a daughter, Kamsa could not kill her, and she has entered into the celestial planets. My dear friend, do not be aggrieved. We are all being controlled by our past unseen activities. Everyone is subjected to his past deeds, and one who is conversant with the philosophy of karma and its reaction is a man in knowledge. Such a person will not be aggrieved at any incident, happy or miserable." Vasudeva then replied, "My dear Nanda, if you have already paid the government taxes, then return soon to your place, because I think that there may be some disturbances in Gokula." After the friendly conversation between Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, Vasudeva returned to his home. The cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, who had come to Mathura to pay their taxes, also returned. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 5th chapter of Krishna. meeting of Nanda and Vasudeva. Haribol. Okay, tomorrow we have a nice chapter where this huge Putana demon is killed.
Utana.
Yes.
Evil. Utana is killed.
Haribol.
Utana turns into Mata.
It's here.
Mataji.
The Putana was so huge that they need two pictures.
Like Putana, like she was like 7 miles tall.
Yes, Prabhu.
My goodness.
Yes, and her eyebrows
7
are
miles.
here. They're like this. They're like birds.
It's like looking at caterpillars.
Oh yes, and this two teeth. What is this? He's scared.
Teeth of a boar. Yeah, she got promoted as like the mother.
Yes, Prabhu.
And everything.
Okay, let's read Sikshasta compares. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam shreyah kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyava dujivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamritasvadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam.
Nam namakari paluda nitisarva saktis takta pita niyamita svane nakalaha. Ita dishita vakipa bhagava mamapi dordeva mitri shamya janina anuragaha.
त्रिनादपि शून्यसेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमाननीयमानदेन सदा हि।
न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवदाद्भक्
अयि नन्दतनुजा किङ्करं पतितां मां विषमे भवां बुधौ कृपा तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय.
Nainam galat asudarya patanam kat kararuta kriya ulakyan nititam vapukata tamanama grehe pavisyati.
युगैतां निमिषेण चक्षुषा परवशापितं शून्यतं जगत् सर्वं गोविन्दं विरहेण मे।
आश्लिष्य वा पादरतां विनष्टुमां दर्शनामर्महदां करोतु वा यदा तदा वा विदधातु लम्पटो प्राणनादस्तु स एव नापरः.
Ribol. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction movement. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your name, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of the names like Krishna and Govinda. In this transcendental name, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rule for the chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enabled us to easily approach you by your holy name. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful woman, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I'm your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as well in the arms of your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will the hairs of my body, when will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end with the recitation of your name?
Ribo. Oh Govinda, feeling your separations, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally.
Ribo, Sri Siksastakam ki jai.
Jai,
Jai.
Jai. Nityananda
Jai,
ki jai. Sri
Jai,
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Jagat
Jai,
Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai
Jai.
Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bo.
Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.